Life is not ruined by fate, nor by external circumstances alone. More often than not, we are the architects of our own downfall. Fyodor Dostoyevsky, one of the greatest literary minds in history, understood this better than most. His novels explored the depths of human psychology, exposing the ways in which people sabotage their own happiness, surrender to their darkest impulses, and justify their own suffering. But how do we ruin our own lives? Dostoyevsky's works provide us with a brutal yet insightful answer. We destroy ourselves when we refuse to confront the truth about who we are, when we choose comfort over meaning, and when we let guilt, resentment, and self-pity consume us. The hidden traps that Dostoyevsky warned about, traps that, if left unchecked, can lead us down a path of despair, regret, and self-inflicted suffering. One of the most destructive ways we ruin our own lives, according to Dostoyevsky, is through self-deception. We lie to ourselves about who we are, what we want, and what truly matters. Instead of facing reality, we create illusions that justify our failures, our inaction, and our suffering. In Notes from Underground, the narrator is a perfect example of this. He claims to be intelligent, yet he sabotages every opportunity for happiness. He convinces himself that he is superior to others, but in truth, he is miserable and resentful. He does not act, he only rationalizes his misery, blaming the world instead of taking responsibility. This is how many people ruin their lives. They choose to live in a fantasy rather than face their flaws. They tell themselves they are victims, that their failures are someone else's fault, that they have no control. They create elaborate justifications for why they remain stagnant, why they don't pursue their dreams, why they stay in toxic relationships, why they avoid responsibility. These mental narratives may provide temporary relief, but they ultimately lead to stagnation and self-destruction. Dostoyevsky understood this tendency well. His characters often wrestle with their own dishonesty, clinging to comforting lies rather than painful truths. But what he also teaches us is that the first step to overcoming this self-inflicted misery is radical self-honesty. We must strip away the excuses, the illusions, and the comfortable lies that protect our egos. Dostoyevsky's philosophy makes one thing clear: only by confronting the truth, no matter how painful, can we begin to break free from the cycle of self-destruction. The moment we stop lying to ourselves is the moment we can start changing our lives. But this requires courage, the courage to face our own darkness and take responsibility for our fate. It is easier to stay in the comfort of self-delusion than to step into the harsh light of reality. But if we don't, we risk spending our lives trapped in the underground of our own minds, just like Dostoyevsky's most miserable characters. Dostoyevsky believed that many people do not truly want freedom, they fear it. Why? Because freedom comes with responsibility. If you are free to shape your own life, then you are also responsible for its failures, its disappointments, and its struggles. And responsibility is terrifying. In The Brothers Karamazov, Dostoyevsky presents one of his most powerful ideas through the parable of the Grand Inquisitor. In this story, Christ returns to earth, but instead of being welcomed, he is imprisoned by the church. The Grand Inquisitor tells him that people do not actually want the burden of free will. They want to be controlled, to be given rules, to be told what to do. True freedom is too heavy a weight for most to bear. And this is how many people ruin their lives. They refuse to take responsibility for their choices. They prefer to blame their circumstances, their upbringing, society, or fate. They convince themselves that they have no power, that life is unfair, that success is only for the lucky. This mindset is comforting because it absolves them of responsibility. If everything is out of their control, then they don't have to take action, they don't have to change. But this is a lie. Dostoyevsky shows us that the only way to live meaningfully is to embrace responsibility fully. Yes, freedom is terrifying. Yes, it means accepting that your failures are your own. But it also means you have the power to change your life. You are not merely a victim of fate, you are the creator of your destiny. Most people, like the followers of the Grand Inquisitor, choose comfort over freedom. They choose to follow rather than lead. They choose to live in quiet submission rather than bear the weight of responsibility. But Dostoyevsky warns us that this path, while easy in the short term, leads to a life of regret and mediocrity. If you want to avoid ruining your life, you must do the thing that terrifies you most. Take full responsibility for it. Stop waiting for permission, stop blaming the world, and stop fearing failure. The moment you claim responsibility is the moment you truly begin to live. Dostoyevsky understood something profoundly disturbing about human nature. Sometimes, we destroy our own lives on purpose. Not out of ignorance, not out of weakness, but out of a deep, unconscious desire for chaos. In Notes from Underground, the narrator admits something shocking. He enjoys acting against his own best interests. When he has a chance to be happy, he ruins it. When he could build something meaningful, he destroys it instead. Why? Because self-destruction makes him feel in control. If he fails, it is because he chose to fail. He would rather suffer by his own hand than succeed by someone else's rules. This is the mindset of many people who ruin their own lives. They reject help. They push away love, they waste opportunities, not because they are incapable, but because deep down, they would rather fall on their own terms than succeed on someone else's. They fear the vulnerability of happiness. They reject success because it feels foreign, unnatural, even undeserved. Dostoyevsky's characters reveal a brutal truth. People sometimes choose suffering because it feels familiar. A life of struggle, chaos, and failure is predictable, and predictability is safe. Success, on the other hand, brings uncertainty. It demands growth. It forces you to step into the unknown, to become someone new. And that is terrifying. This is why some people ruin their own relationships just when things are going well. It's why they procrastinate on their dreams. It's why they find ways to make their lives harder than they need to be. The pain of failure is easier to accept than the uncertainty of success. Recognizing this destructive instinct is the first step to escaping it. If you can identify the moments when you are about to sabotage yourself, you can choose differently. You can break the cycle. You can stop running from happiness and finally allow yourself to embrace it. Dostoyevsky explored another powerful force behind self-destruction: guilt. Many people do not sabotage themselves because they crave chaos, but because they feel they do not deserve happiness. Deep inside, they carry the weight of past mistakes, regrets, and failures. They see success as something meant for others, but not for them. This theme is most evident in Crime and Punishment, where Raskolnikov commits a terrible crime and spends the rest of the novel consumed by guilt. His suffering is not just external, it is internal, self-inflicted. He could try to move forward, to rebuild his life, but he doesn't. He chooses torment over redemption. He believes he must suffer, as if pain is the only way to pay for his sins. Many people do the same in their own lives. They push away love because they think they are unworthy of it. They reject opportunities because they feel they don't deserve success. They avoid happiness because, deep down, they believe they should suffer. This is a prison of their own making, built from guilt and self-hatred. One of the most fascinating ideas in Dostoyevsky's work is the belief that suffering gives us control. If the world is cruel, then choosing to suffer on their own terms feels like an act of defiance. This mindset is more common than we think. People who self-sabotage often do so because they feel powerless. If life is uncertain, if happiness is fragile, then failure at least gives them something predictable. Dostoyevsky's characters show how dangerous this illusion is. In Notes from Underground, the narrator takes pride in his misery. He believes that by refusing to conform to society's expectations, by rejecting love and success, he is proving his superiority. But in reality, he is a prisoner of his own mind. His suffering is not strength, it is fear disguised as rebellion. This applies to real life. Many people convince themselves that they are choosing their pain when, in reality, they are simply afraid of what comes next. They cling to suffering because it feels familiar, because it allows them to avoid the unknown. But Dostoyevsky warns us, this is not freedom. True freedom comes not from rejecting happiness, but from having the courage to embrace it. Dostoyevsky understood human nature better than most. His novels reveal a painful truth: Often, we are our own worst enemy. We sabotage ourselves not because we want to fail, but because we fear what success might demand of us. We embrace suffering because it feels familiar, because it gives us an illusion of control. We reject happiness because we feel unworthy of it, or because we are afraid of losing it once we have it. But Dostoyevsky also offers a way out. His characters show us that self-destruction is not fate, it is a choice. Redemption is always possible, but only if we have the courage to face ourselves. This means confronting our fears, our guilt, and our deepest insecurities. It means accepting that we deserve happiness, even if we have failed before. Dostoyevsky's message is clear: life is brutal, but meaning is found in how we respond to it. You can destroy yourself, or you can rebuild. The choice is yours.